go give. Alrighty, go ahead and give Rhykker some love. There you go. Not they needs me out here, but we are fanboying. And let's... Phenomenal.
This is Rhykker, and we just got the...
I can't hear.
reveal of the 2025 roadmap for Diablo 4. Here's the roadmap right here, but...
Also, real quick, the thing behind me is just the stuff from Witchcraft. We've already done this. We're not learning about this. We've already done that, just so I'm not blocking nothing.
I also got an exclusive interview with Brent Gibson, game director on Diablo 4, to ask him about basically what is just a whole bunch of teasers for what we can expect for Diablo 4 coming in 2025 and beyond. On the road.
So to very quickly just like give my opinion on things that I saw already here, I won't waste too much of your time. We're going to watch all of Rhyker's video and get a sense of it. But without hearing Brent Gibson's side of the story, my initial thought was that while this is very good and there's very good stuff in here, I don't like that in this roadmap, we're not getting the details about the stuff that's being teased on the roadmap. So we already knew basically everything here coming in Bilal's return. We've already seen the season. We had the PTR for it. So now we just need to know what changes they're making based off of that. We learned about the IP collabs. Those are definitely cool. My chat's thinking that this one's going to be Doom, since the new Doom Medieval is releasing. But we also already knew a lot about this. So from my perspective, without, being overtly, aggressive here or hostile, this part right here entirely of the roadmap is stuff we already have, stuff that we already know. So we have to look past this for what we're learning about in, here in this part of it. So we get the idea of what the new seasons are going to be for the rest of the year. So this season is going to run end of April to July. The interesting part here is that if they keep the 3-month season here, which it looks like they're doing, July will only be a 2-month season because it will be the end of July and then August, September, because, Witchcraft season had to go longer to finish cooking on the next season coming up, season 8. And then we're going to have the 3-month here. So end of September into October, November, December is going to be the last season. So we get, Horadric powers. I think people are going to roast a little bit because it's like powers. It's not necessarily what people are looking for. I think people have made it like abundantly clear that they would like something more than just powers. I personally like the powers. I think it's perfectly fine. I think this is the exact same thing as getting like a different type of crafting personally, but like, that's just, it's apples to oranges at that point. It just comes down to your personal taste. But I like the idea of dungeon escalation here. If you go read the blog post, they give you a little bit more information about the dungeon escalation concept. Returning to Nightmare Dungeon, new activities and interactions let you progress the dungeon's intensity. So what does dungeon intensity mean here? Dungeon intensity says a lot to me, something like the mine cages, which we had previously, which could upgrade the difficulty of the Hell Tides. It sounds a lot kind of like, a little bit, maybe like an Atlas passive trait. I'm not going to get my hopes too insanely high here. But I think a thing that Diablo 4 gets a lot of flack for is the fact that like we really don't have meta progression and we can't really tailor content to be more valuable to us. We lack farming strategies. We lack a lot of what you could do in Diablo 2 with your different builds. Maybe you just fight bosses, maybe you farm cows, maybe you only do elite farming, or something like Path of Exile where you can literally choose to just be super good, just the giga chat of killing bosses. That's all that you do. So that content with bosses is better for you. So I'm hoping that dungeon escalation is something like that, being able to tailor Nightmare Dungeons to be valuable for you outside of what they currently do, which is basically just Opticite farming, since even farming gear there isn't particularly valuable. But that would be a very cool thing. I do love the console mouse and keyboard support. It's just good that it's coming down the lines. You could argue it should already have been there. What can you do? I can't do anything about that, but I think it's really good that it's coming down the line. And then the last season of the year before we get the expansion being the update to the Infernal Hordes, which they highlight here as Not only more chaotic with more choices, but advanced options as well between the waves, which I'm kind of interested to know what that means. Like, are we going to be able to go into different Infernal Horde arenas and then also get the update to things that, like, Soulspires just kind of suck? Everything other than doing Hellborn just kind of sucks. And can we make Infernal Hordes like truly insanely random and RNG heavy? Because if you didn't know, even on top of the options, there's just cool spawn events in the Infernal Hordes. There's just a butcher just shows up. Now you can pick it, but it can also just happen randomly. There's also the one where like multiple, fallen shaman spawn, and then half of the map goes into red flame waves. Just random stuff like that. I'd love to see more of that. That's what it kind of sounds like, because we're also getting chaos powers here. So maybe more RNG, more events, more things happening. And then down here, the end of it is new expansion. We knew that was coming. New ranking system. Ranking system, in addition to leaderboards, is a very interesting thing. Is this the return of the gauntlet? Is this pit ranking? What are leaderboards mean if it's not a ranking system? These two things here being separate is very interesting. The thing that kind of grinded my gears a little bit, no pun intended, is teasing the new with the... Oh, wow, this picture is so much more clear. Why is that picture so much more clear? This picture here is completely fire covered, and I got this one from here. Oh, hold on, we're seeing this in real time. So this is completely covered, but in this roadmap that he has, it says, okay, so it's new class. We would assume that a new class is coming in the expansion. That's what this one says. I just find it weird that these two graphics are completely different. So who knows? Maybe they didn't know they had two different pictures here. All right, I take my gripe away. I didn't like that this was completely covered in the picture that's posted on Twitter, Adam Fletcher's Twitter. We were actually like literally like going in and changing out the like changing the gamma and stuff, trying to figure out what it was. But right here it clearly just says new class. Okay, so that's cool. Enough of me yapping. That's kind of how I feel. I would have liked to see a little bit more out of the roadmap, but that being said, if this is what's coming, it's good to know. And I like that this wasn't, you can clearly see it, this says new class. And I'm most excited for the difference between new ranking system and leaderboard, those being two different things. 2, Infernal Hordes getting a remake because it's desperately needed one. And Dungeons having escalation, which sounds a little bit to me like Atlas map, which I'm very excited about. Or I'm sorry, Atlas passive tree, not Atlas map. Very different concept. All right, let's get back to Rhykker. Let's go.
Roadmap, we see what to expect in Season 8, Belial's Return, as well as Season 9, Sins of the Haradrim, and Season 10, Infernal Chaos, as well as what's going to be permanent additions to the game, separated out at the bottom here. So take a moment to take in what you're seeing right now on the screen. We're going to move now into the interview with Brent Gibson, where we're going to talk point by point on what a lot of these things could mean.
Brent Gibson is an absolute goat. I love Brent. He's really awesome to talk to. He's really awesome to work with. I had my first opportunity to meet him when we got flown out for the expansion reveal and the Spiritborn reveal. Dude's an absolute nerd. If you think you know a lot about Diablo lore in general, I promise you Brent knows just about as much as you do. He out-nerded me as well, which I was very impressed with. I also like, is this motocross? A sick helmet back here. It's a really cool study. I've gotten to see this before. Dude's just like, it just smells like rich mahogany, I'm pretty sure. But Brent is absolutely awesome. I'm really glad that he's continuing to be at the forefront for like expansion development, and just overall like a big position as far as the game's development path.
So our first ever Diablo 4 roadmap, and the first thing that strikes me, we are seeing content, first off, all throughout the rest of the year, but it's not just season, 8, 9, 10. We're actually getting season names here with a few bullet points of what to expect. I didn't realize you guys had season themes planned out so far in advance. We're season 7 now. Did you guys, is this the norm, or for purposes of building a roadmap, did you guys have to commit to stuff further in advance, stuff that normally would be more in flux?
Great question. I think for the first time we're in a position where we can do this. When the game released, the base game released, we were getting an influx of all of this feedback, right? And so we were trying to figure out the right order and operation to continue to iterate on the game and address that feedback. So we were very reactionary in that state. But the closer we got to expansion 1 with Vessel of Hatred, things started to become clearer and clearer on what we should be going after. And so
this is such an important point, I think, is kind of hard to recognize. And, you know, people have been saying this the whole time, like, you know, do they know where they want to take the game? What direction are they going with the game? What do they want the game to be? And credit where credit's due. We're finally at the point where, okay, they actually do know what they want the game to be. They have the game that they do. They have an expansion under their belt, which was another hard reset as far as systems and progression. And now what they're iterating on is what the game should more permanently look like. And the vision for how they're going to get there is more set in stone as far as what they want to accomplish. Now, they obviously, and everybody makes jokes. There's a great Frosty LaRue video about them saying feedback. Hate on Blizzard all you want. You know, be an absolute, like, stand for any other game, any other developer. Just about every single thing that's happened to the game has come at the direct request of feedback from the community. And you could argue maybe it shouldn't need to be like that, but I'm personally glad that it is, because I've never played another game where, even outside being a partner, just being a part of the community, just being a player of the game, where the players have basically gotten to demand that the game change, and the developers seriously consider that and enact a lot of them in very meaningful ways. And it's just very cool that now that we know what the game is and what the game can do and what they want the game to do, they can actually start moving towards that, as opposed to playing catch up, which they have been since, like, they've been playing catch up since before the game was fully released. And I really want to highlight that, because this is, you know, we've had like Diablo 4 2.0 like 3 times now. This is really Diablo 4 2.0. So I'm excited to see what they do with that.
So we're finally in a state where we have a very strong idea of what we want to do with the game, which allows us to kind of project out and create some fun themes and brainstorm a little more freely. And we're finding ourselves in more of a proactive state than a reactive state. So largely that's where that comes from. And then secondarily, like, we want to hold ourselves to pushing this game and continuing to add really great stuff to it. We want to be able to polish it, and in order to polish it, we need to know what parts of the game need that attention, so that we are in a great position leading into 2026 with the expansion, which we want to make sure we're in a great spot to build upon everything that we have.
I need to make sure to not just nod my head continuously. The thing I want to point out is that this is a really great question from Rhykker. I don't think people necessarily appreciate it. Asking the question, hey, we have all these season themes. This is how far out it is. Is this because you're in a good place, or because you had to deliver this roadmap? And that's kind of a pretty hard-hitting question. That's like really like, hey, admit your faults and give us insight into whether or not you all even feel like, you know, you're succeeding. Obviously, Rhykker says it's super polite and it's just an insightful query, but like, that's a pretty rough question to ask, and I think they're doing a great job with it here.
You touched upon being proactive versus reactive. You've historically been very reactive. Mm-hmm. Moving forward, do you think with a firm roadmap, will it be harder to be reactive, or are you affording yourself some room in there for that reactivity in case something were to come up?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, as you get further into the year, we know that we're going to discover something. Mm-hmm. And so we want this really to be a living document where today we're talking about this stuff. We have a lot of commitment to going after these things. But if we get a few months down the road and there's something that really needs to be looked at, we're going to do what's right for the game. And so we're giving ourselves that flexibility while trying to really drive towards a target And so, 3 months from now, 6 months from now, we may be talking about some differences on the roadmap, and then we'll have something to talk about at that point, and it's going to be largely driven by the fans that are playing the game. So feeling pretty good that we have a plan that we can get out there with and have conversations with folks like yourself.
Wonderful. All right, well, looking at the specifics on the roadmap, we see in a couple places a new IP collab. For those who don't know, an IP is an intellectual property. So like Diablo is an intellectual property. Other games, it could be a movie, whatever, other universes or other IPs. Evidently, you can't speak to what those IPs may be, but for a Diablo 4 player, what does a new IP collab mean? Is it new shop skins? Is it new events? What kind of scope can we expect?
Yeah, the spirit behind a collaboration is to find dark fantasies that fit really well with our dark fantasy, right? And so, first off, the goal is to make sure that we're true to the brand and we're not doing anything that is actually jeopardizing that cool dark identity that we have.
Is KFC chicken sandwiches dark? I guess it's dark meat. No, I'm just messing with them. You just do stuff. You get stuff out there. I was excited about the chicken scythe and all of that. No, but these sound like as opposed to just like an advertisement run, a little press run. This is more like cool overlap. So again, probably Doom is probably up there. Doom kind of fits into the whole idea. Can I be Doom Slayer? Am I going to have the Doom guy outfit? Maybe.
The other portion of this is that we are role-playing in this game these crazy power fantasies. And we're inspired by things all of the time. We read many books, we watch many shows, we play many games, and every once in a while you come across something you're like, yeah, that fits. And so the goal is to come out with...
That's 5e, right? Is this 5e? He has many leather-bound books in his rich mahogany. I think these are 5e? Maybe? That's got to be like the Book of Lorath or something. Those look like 5e player books.
With a whole suite of cosmetics that allow you to role play inside of that fantasy inside of the Diablo universe. And so you'll see, we got the new Reliquary system coming up. We'll probably talk about that a little bit. And that gives us a great platform and opportunity to offer some of those collabs.
So no Hello Kitty Island Adventure, but
no.
the World of Warcraft skins, would that be an example of an IP collab? The ones that we already got?
Yeah, that's like an internal one, right? Like it made a lot of sense, and it's inside Blizzard, which we know we have fans that play both games very deeply, but we want to branch out a little more than that, So I'm not going to spoil what the collab is, but we definitely don't want to go down the route of rainbow armor and French fry swords. We got to be. We don't I say it often, like, don't betray the brand. But there is a lot of opportunity out there that is super cool.
You hit upon Reliquaries. I think we're going to learn more about those soon. Anything you can tease about them in the interim?
Yeah, looking at the way that we were approaching battle passes was kind of like the old way of doing things. It didn't give the player a lot of control or agency over what they wanted to go after. And so we are going after something a little more modern that breaks things up in a way where players can be more specific about the things that they are chasing from a cosmetic standpoint. So, whether it be seasonal theme stuff that they're chasing, or we have a collab that's out there, this will give the players a lot more choice along the way.
So that sounds like, because they point out the battle pass right now is very old, right? You buy the battle pass, you unlock the things in the battle pass. The bottom track gives you more freemium currency, and the skins have 2 more graphics effects on them, right? I think a really good example of the battle pass that I felt very invested in finishing was Helldivers 2. I think Helldivers 2 has a very good battle pass. I really like the idea of battle passes where if you are willing to grind in game, you can unlock this stuff, or you can support the game financially and get a boost to when you get those things. And the cool part about the battle pass in Helldivers is that, like, maybe I do not care about this heavy recon armor. Maybe I only care about this, like, light kind of like Dune style kind of, you know, tactical, whatever. You've played Helldivers 2, you know what I'm talking about. And I'm wondering if that's what we're going to see, kind of the more like, here's the page, here's how many freemium currency points you got. You can unlock these things. If you get the battle pass, you get them all throughout it. A more modern battle pass, something that is basically like more fun to click things. And you get to like see, you know, you get to see the preview of it right there. It immediately gets put onto your character, that kind of thing, something along those lines, which I think would be a lot more interesting. Because I know a lot of the player base that, you know, a lot more of the casual player base, the things that people say to me, they're like, I get in, I do my season's journey, I unlock everything in the battle pass, I play 1 or 2 characters, and I log off until next season, which is perfectly valid. And I think that if people literally were just more invested in the stuff that they were unlocking during the season, they would just get more bang for their buck. They would get to enjoy the game for longer. And that means that the dollars that they spent were of higher value to them, regardless of whether or not you personally buy the battle pass. A lot of people really like it, so I'm glad they're trying to modernize it. Calling it Reliquaries is like, I guess I'll have to see what that means. But calling it Reliquaries is like, it's more in theme. It's less like fourth wall breaking, like you're playing Diablo 4, you are the Wanderer, she who has killed Lilith, and click your battle pass to get your battle mountain, your battle point. You know what I mean? It's just like it's a bit more in world, which I also like.
So we've had loot 2.0, progression 2.0, reliquaries are basically battle pass 2.0.
That I think that's fair to say. Yeah.
All right. We also have here a season journey update. Anything you can tease there?
Yeah, of course. You know, when we look at the season's journey, it was so directly tied to the battle pass. And with us moving to reliquaries, it allows us to open up growth for the season journey itself. And so moving forward, you know, we can do some great, interesting things like nesting objectives inside of chapters now. So you can have a major objective that has smaller objectives that build up to it nested in. And we can start rewarding you inside of the season's journey itself with rewards along the way. And so there's more granularity to getting rewarded, so you don't have to finish an entire chapter to start seeing some of the benefits from that. So it kind of breaks the handcuffs off and allows us to do a lot more, and that's something that we'll continue to invest in as we go along the way.
I really like that concept. There's 2 parts to it. The season's journey offers a really good opportunity for the game to tutorialize what's happening in the season, to get players on board and to make sure that players have seen all the different content types. Like, have you done a cellar? I don't know if you have. Go down and do some cellars. The thing that kind of sucks, though, is especially, I always felt like if you're kind of just blasting, you progress far past the season's journey, but it's like, you didn't go back and you didn't get seeds of corruption from the PvP zone. So even though you've killed T4 Duriel, you are still on season's journey 3. It's like, I mean, okay, sure. And then like you go and do that one thing, you unlock like 6 of them in a row. So I like the idea of it being not like a tree. They're not saying a tree here. The idea of nested content or nested objectives. It's like doing these 4 things that make sense to do together, get you these bonuses so that when you go to do the harder to accomplish thing, you've already gotten some loot, you've gotten some caches, maybe you've gotten some experience, or you've unlocked some aspects that are relevant to the build of that season, whatever it is. So I think that's a really, really good change. Another great question from Rhykker, because you could just as easily have like said like, oh, okay, we're getting season journey update, you know, anything like big, but this is actually like a very good insight into what we should be expecting.
On the topic of the season journey, we've we've seen in the past people feeling the need to complete content in Torment 4 in order to complete the season journey. Now, you guys have recently said that the objective is for 10% of players to be hitting Torment 4. Does that mean we're going to see a shift in what kind of goals there are in the season journey?
Yeah, one of the overarching things for 2025 is to, bring challenge back into the game. Now, I want to be really specific. It is not to turn the game up to 10 for everybody. This is a game that is about the way I play. I like to log in. I like to just relax. It's my end of the day stress reliever. And so we're not going to do anything that jeopardizes that. But there are players that really like to be tested. And so getting to a spot with some of our activities and some of our guided systems like this to create those spikes in the appropriate places is something that we want to continue to look at season upon season. So it's like what you see with some of the power adjustments that we're putting into season 8. We take a look at what the boss layers look like. Is there something we can do there? We know we got a lot of high-end players in that activity. What does that mean? But we also don't want to lose the accessibility. And so it's a dance as we go along. I heard your stream where you're talking about some people like cake, some people like pie, and that is the dance we're doing. I like cake, by the way. My brother likes pie. But
there are 2 good pies in the universe. These are the only 2 good pies. Feel free to roast me down in the comments if you made it this far. The only 2 good pies are lemon meringue pie and Boston cream pie. All other pies are sad fruit. You should eat fruit raw because raw fruit feels better in the mouth. And apple pie is garbage. I said it. I'm not afraid to say it. Pumpkin pie is also like kind of good. It depends on what you put on top of it. But there you go. That's what I got. I'm much more a cake person. Although I really hate like really sugary like the like Stop and Shop or whatever your grocery store is, like the really sugary frosting. That's garbage. Give me a Carvel ice cream cake. There we go.
We're not gonna sacrifice one for the other, and we're gonna continue to play that dance and getting to the game where it needs to be for everybody.
It's a tough dance. It's a tough balance to strike for sure. So looking forward at season.
Okay, this is really important. I thought of a third pie. Chocolate cream pie is also very good, which is basically just Boston cream pie, but different. I actually don't know I don't know if those 2 things are different. We're going to get back to Diablo, but I just want to put that out there. There are 3 good pies in the universe.
9 here, Sins of the Haradrim. I know previously we've seen teases, I think it was we've seen teases that we'd see a familiar face returning for a previous season. Given Haradrim are people that we've tended to know in lore, might we see any familiar faces, or we can't talk to that?
Well, I can tell you that continuity is a piece of feedback we get a lot. If you look at season 5, we referenced Lilith and the way that impacted that faction. You saw it in the dialogue. Is probably one of our most charismatic NPCs we've ever had. And so we know that continuity of like what's happening in the world or what has happened in the world is pretty important. And so season upon season, you're going to see that connective tissue kind of filtering in and leading us down a road, no pun intended with the roadmap, getting us to the next expansion. And so I won't share the details, but the Haradrim is a very strong theme in the game. And I mean, anybody who played base game, clearly it's a big part. But for those who haven't, our lore is very deep. We have some really cool themes that have more story to tell that we haven't already. And so, yeah, that'll be a pretty interesting season.
We see we're going to.
So to speak on that very quickly, one of the very interesting and early on declarations or explanations that we got from the developers is that seasons should only be considered to be side stories which are not integral to the overall story of the game, and that we would only see major plot developments in expansions. But what I find very interesting about that statement that he just made there is that the stories in the seasons will be leading you down a road to the expansion, which is pretty like drastically changes what the impact of these things are. Now, oddly enough, there are people who play this role-playing game for the roleplay, for the lore, for the story. I find it so hilarious when people like get angry that there are side quests with story or that an NPC is talking, which I think is just like, you know, to each their own, sure. But if I could pick a side, if I could get up on a high horse, arguably one of the strongest things about the Diablo franchise is the goddamn story of Diablo. And the idea that you would ever be put off by the fact that this role-playing game is trying to give you lore is just, it's low energy. I'll leave it at that. But that being said, that's a pretty drastic change from, oh, you know, the seasons are just like little standalone things. You know, it kind of doesn't matter. They're just cool. They'll be in the world, but like, you know, it's not going to inform the expansion, right? Like, what did Lord Theyre in the, you know, the season of Season of Blood have to do with Nahantu? Absolutely nothing, right? It's just like, oh, there were, you know, some of the original Nephilim got into a blood cult to live forever, and that's how you got vampires. It's like, oh, okay, that's cool. But if seasons stories are now meant to inform the direction the world is going leading into an expansion, that's a pretty big departure. And I like that a lot more. It helps me personally to feel more invested in these seasons. Because we think about witchcraft. Witchcraft was all about the idea of collecting rogue heads that hadn't paid their dues to the Tree of Whispers that had been stolen. And we know that Lorath will eventually have to give his head to the tree because he bargained with it. Belial coming back, bringing another one of the, you know, not Prime, but one of the evils back into the world. So it's not just Mephisto's influence, but other evils are coming in. Sins of the Horadrim. It's hard to think about what Sins of the Horadrim mean in this context. Which Horadrim? Which sins? Infernal Chaos. This one's also kind of hard to like, I don't see the map, but if there's a map, and also, does this just look like the Crusader banner? I can't figure out where this symbol is from. Maybe Rhykker asks on it. Maybe Nineball knows. Let me know down in the comments if you know specifically what symbol this is. This just looks a lot like the Crusader banner to me. I'll stop yapping here. But that's a very cool departure, and I like that change in the direction if they actually act on it, where these stories are tailoring the world, are, you know, terraforming so that it can receive the expansion, have that story have more run up to it, so that this time in between isn't just kind of like whatever as far as the lore is concerned.
We're going to be getting Heraldric powers with this season. So we've had vampiric powers, we've had witch powers, boss powers. For all of those, we kind of, just from the name, can know what to expect, right? Blood powers, you know, bats and whatnot, and you know what a boss does. Right. What can we expect from a Heraldric power, given the Horadrim are pretty varied in their powers? They're, you know, anyone can really be a Horadrim if they commit to it.
Yeah, you know, one of the things, like, we're talking like 6 months out, right? Maybe a little less than that. The power set itself will make a lot of sense as soon as you're inside the theme. So it's very hard not to spoil things, by the way. And obviously, Heraldric power is way more specific than saying boss powers or chaos powers. Those are big nebulous categories. I think you can fill the imagination, but we're being a little more specific with this one. And so, yeah, I feel like, without spoiling anything, the idea here is that it should support the narrative and the theme of that season. And there's obviously a lot more inside of that banner that would unpack to support that. But we're looking at these as tight thematic packages, and so you'll see more power along those lines.
And we see dungeon escalation. This is presumably the...
Rhykker tried his best. You know, can you give us anything? Brent did a good job. No, I can't. So, you know, we didn't really learn anything there, but honestly, I don't think they could be teasing something that far out.
Seasonal activity. Anything you can tease there? Is this like the name to me? I think of like maybe a progressively harder dungeon. You keep going deeper and deeper. Am I anywhere close?
Well, your predictions are always pretty close. One of the things that I wanted to point out here is the fact that every season is focusing on an activity that needs some kind of update to shore up our foundation, to like strengthen our core. And we've gotten mountains of feedback on Nightmare Dungeons and the situation that they have been in season upon season. So we know they need attention, right? And so this was a really good way to say this season we are putting our attention here. And so the dungeon escalation, the new activities that we're adding are all a part of the feedback that we've been getting from the community along the way. And so, what you can expect when you come into the season is that you'll be interacting with Nightmare Dungeons in a different style of activity. And we're going to see how that goes. I'm super excited about it. We're in meetings about it pretty much every single day at this point. And hopefully that gives a system that needs a lot of love the attention it deserves. The other thing to point out is that, we're not only doing this with activities that need that attention because of the feedback. Infernal Horde's going great. Lots of players play it. They really enjoy it. Like if you look at all the numbers, it's like high sentiment and tons of daily players are in there all the time. We are still going to invest into those as well. Keep the shiny jewels as shiny as we possibly can and continue to provide updates that are going to be meaningful for everybody. And so what you can see with the seasons upon seasons is that we are really strengthening the key activities that we feel are very important for the.
Sorry, I'm just being. What he's saying is very important, and I like this commitment to the all content being touched as opposed to just individual content. We have to talk about his sick plaque in the background because this is the Xbox controller, the PlayStation controller, the Wiimote, and then you get the Sega Genesis controller. You have the original NES controller, and then you have the Atari stick controller here. This is just a very, very cool art piece. I'm just nerding out over it a little bit.
The game, creating quality and consistency so we can swing super hard in 26. Right? So that's the goal.
All right, so Season 9, big for Nightmare Dungeons. Then Season 10, Infernal Chaos. It's going to be big for Infernal Hordes. Which, as you said, beloved activity. I know I've seen people say they added this great thing and then they haven't done anything with it since. Right. One thing I noticed about the map is, if I'm remembering it correctly, there's a place early on where it feels like it could potentially open up into a couple different wings. Could we expect either new maps or new paths to open, or what kind of do you have any idea of a kind of a scope to expect from Infernal Hordes updates?
One of the things that we want to give players is more choice, right? And so choice is definitely a part of the design. How that unpacks, we'll wait until we get to the spot we can talk about it. But the focus that we've had on this is like choice and variety. It already has a pretty good mechanism for that. It's like, but what if we can take that one more step further? And so instead of like creating something completely different to add to the activity set, it's like, can we actually inject that difference into this activity itself? And so more choice is definitely the name of the game for that one, and you'll see it when we get a little closer. Fair
enough. And we see Chaos Powers. You kind of mentioned them before. So Chaos Powers as well is something that I don't know so much what that means. But I guess when I think chaos, I think a lot of randomness. I don't know if that's necessarily what's being channeled, or more chaos in an infernal sense, more like evil chaos sort of thing. Where were you guys leaning with that name?
Well, with the Chaos Powers will make a lot more sense, similar to the Herodic Powers, as soon as we get to a point where we can talk about what the activity is and how that ties in. If you've noticed, we have been tying the the seasonal powers to an activity type to really refresh it. So mechanically, we want things to work in concert with the powers and the activity combined. We also know that this is a system that allows us to do experimentation that hits all classes, right? And so when we're trying to focus in on experimentation, we have a single system that speaks to many, many players. And so you will see certain things return from time to time, but this is also a place where, like, okay, we can ask the team, okay, chaos, what does that mean to you? And then they can be a little more wild with it in a safe and controlled place. And like I said, it also provides that focus because there's a lot going on in the expansion right now that needs that attention. And so where we can make big impact for all players, we can do something maybe a little more radical once we get out to the expansion itself.
So something that he said there made me think more about Sins of the Horadrim. There have been Horadrim throughout the history that we know that have done things that have ultimately done harm. And the idea of tying things into a system. So Belial returns, you're doing boss powers because you're doing bosses. Witchcraft, you're doing, the witch hunts, and you're doing whispers. Infernal Chaos, you're doing Infernal Hordes, which there needs to be more than one arena type if you want me to do Infernal Hordes for an entire content type. The idea of Sins of the Horadrim. My first thought is kind of like the Caverns of Time in World of Warcraft, where we're going to go experience events from the past and have those be like, little locked dungeons that you go do, where you come out of it with whatever the resource is and whatever the power is from that experience. That's my idea for Sins of the Horadrim. I'm trying to figure out how that feeds into Nightmare Dungeons, though, because we've already done Nightmare Dungeons with the witch powers, right? I guess you could do Nightmare Dungeons here, and you just go in and there's like a ghost of a Horadrim and you do a thing with them. But I'm wondering if Nightmare Dungeons will open, like completing them will open up to like a micro event where you do these things. We kind of saw this with the Realm Walkers, where the Realm Walkers kind of had their own unique thing that you went into to go do. So they have the tech in it and they've now set a precedent for it. So I'm kind of interesting to see what that looks like. Chat's pointing out that Chaos could deal with Warhammer. I don't know if a Warhammer IP is coming out at the end of 2025. Warhammer's always putting out stuff. Honestly, they're perpetually putting out new things. But yeah, I could see Doom here, killing demons. I could see, Chaos Marines here. That makes sense.
And we see a couple of teasers for 2026. New expansion, Obviously expansion 2 we know is going to be coming up. Are we going to have to wait until 2026 to hear anything about it? Or, we have Gamescom coming up. We have the Xbox Games Showcase. That's all happening this summer. Might we get a summer reveal of the expansion?
I can tell you right now, we have a whole team dedicated at what that whole unpacking looks like. And we're going to be unpacking pieces over several different events over time. So I'm not going to reveal what those events are and what's happening and what, but I can tell you that like the amount of energy and attention that this is getting right now is far beyond what we did with Vessel of Hatred. And, we're crisper with our designs and what we want out of the next expansion as well. And so that's putting our team in a really fantastic spot to start talking about this as early as we possibly can. We're just not ready yet.
The cool thing about that, and I think as a player of the game where you're going to be playing the whole time, so it's like when you find out about it, almost kind of doesn't matter. The reveals for the Vessel of Hatred got my girlfriend, my loving, wonderful partner, to finally play Diablo 4. I could never convince her, but seeing the animation team working with martial artists to be able to craft the animations for the Spiritborn, and then the art direction that they took with the different spirit halls, she's like, that's beautiful. I want to play it. And she played through. She beat the campaign on her Spiritborn. I got to watch her kill Lilith. It was a really, really proud moment. She did it all by herself. I was super proud of her. But I'm excited to find out that their team is doing more with this expansion, because I think reading into that, it's easy for people to say D4 bad. It's easy to assume, back when the game first came out, you had everybody saying like, this is just a cash grab, it's a rug pull. I think at this point, if you haven't been convinced that this is in no way, shape, or form a cash grab or a rug pull on the player base, I don't know what much more they can do for you. But knowing that walking into expansion 2, the team is larger and expecting to do more with more events than they did with Vessel of Hatred, says to me that Diablo 4 is a winning investment for Blizzard and now for Microsoft, and the resources being put into it are not slacking. It is not losing momentum, and in fact, it is gaining momentum, which, while that may not be a personal concern for you because you're just going to play the game, you kind of don't care about the success of it one way or the other, it is really, really reassuring to hear that the game is getting more support and not less support. We're only 2 years into the game coming out as far as the next expansion. But that's just volatility. Some games just come out and then kind of go into support mode really early, go into life support mode really early. So hearing that and how Brent is talking about it is a pretty big vote of confidence that I wasn't expecting to get out of this video, but I'm really excited to hear that.
We see new ranking system and leaderboards. What's the difference between a ranking system and a leaderboard? Are they the same? Are they married systems? Are they two entirely different things?
They're two entirely different things that are meant to complement each other. So we're in a process right now where we know we want to bring leaderboards back to the game. We took a first stab at it early on after shipping the base game, and we learned a lot from that experience. And so now that we've gotten past Vessel of Hatred, we're looking at all the class stuff that we've injected, and we needed to kind of take a deep breath to bring harmony back to those classes. Now that we're there, we know that bringing challenge back into the game is critical, and it actually speaks to the audience in two different ways. You have leaderboards that speaks to the elite, right? This is a place where everybody, I was using an analogy the other day where it was like everybody plays basketball, every little kid plays basketball, they all think that they could become Michael Jordan, right? And so the goal is, let's make it to the NBA. And the leaderboards is a place where the best of the best can kind of show off. But we don't want to isolate it to just those players. There's a lot of casual players out there that just want to have the opportunity to be like, hey, am I doing good? Am I going after these challenges? Was beating that activity the way that I did it considered a good thing? And so what we want to do is have a ranking system that speaks to everybody, that gives you every casual a sense of progress and value, and then graduating the elite into the leaderboard and giving them a space to like really press hard. So we're working on all the details for both of that, but hopefully, we can come up with a pair here that speaks to the entirety of the game and give something for everyone to chase.
It's really hard to it's nearly impossible to overstate just how valuable it is for somebody to log in and go, I'm number 9,874. I'm going to play for a couple hours. Let's see where I get up to. And the education opportunities, like the self-teaching opportunities that are available, being able to see a build, being able to check it out, like in-game and be like, okay, this is what people are doing in-game. What does that mean for me? How far off am I? What does my gear look like? What am I doing? And can I be doing it better? There is so much self-motivation that is currently lacking from the game because there's no visibility. There's no way to know unless you are like checking out YouTube videos all the time or on helltides.com or checking in when we have events on Maxroll, there's just no way for a person to go, am I even playing the game right? And what that means for them. They want to accomplish a thing. Are they working towards that ability? Are they self-actualizing? And it may not be that deep for everybody. It might not be that deep for whoever's watching this video right now. But I can't tell you enough how much this being missing from the game has negatively impacted people's ability to care at all. I would like it sooner than this. I would like it much sooner than this. But that being said, with the second expansion being another opportunity for a hard reset if they need to take it, and having an understanding of what that looked like the last time and what it's going to look like this time, if it needs to occur there, then I'd rather it be done there and done well. But it's definitely, it's before the game even came out, we were like, leaderboards when, and it kind of sucks that 2.5 years later is the answer. But if it has to be the answer, I'd rather it come out and just like revitalize people's ability to even care or be invested in the game in a very, very major way. And leaderboards are this little thing that you kind of just assume are going to be there. You don't really think about, but they are huge for ARPGs. They are massive for the impact on the player base.
All right. You mentioned the Gauntlet. From your view, was the Gauntlet an unsuccessful game system?
No, actually, I think the like I said, the Gauntlet taught us a lot. The one thing with the Gauntlet that I've reflected on is that it is a separate activity that sits to the side, and which is a good way to control a leaderboard, and that makes sense. But it'd be nice if we had something that was more core to the game, and is and speaks to a more broader set of the things that you're doing in the entirety of the game. And so we've taken that learnings and took a step back and said, hey, if we were to go after this again, was the Gauntlet the right place to go? And I think right now we're determining, no, I think we can do better. And so we're going to pressure test that. I really want to be in a position where I can talk to the community and make them a part of its development along the way. And hopefully we're back on camera here soon and can have a real conversation about it.
All right. So the Gauntlet was removed from the game. Was it because there wasn't enough player engagement, or was it just that you guys reached a point where you thought we can do something better than this?
Yeah, we reached a point where we felt like we could do something better with this. And instead of like being distracted at like grinding it out with that, we're like, hey, let's take a pause and refocus that energy on the way we feel like it would, have a better impact.
That's fair. I know a lot of players have been saying from the start, why can't you just add leaderboards to the pit? What are the challenges in implementing leaderboards into Diablo 4 that maybe, the average person might not think about?
Before we get to that question, I just want to say rest in peace to the Gauntlet. People don't know I got to do the live cast with Anacake on the Gauntlet reveal. Blizzard also contracted me to make an entire hype what is the Gauntlet video. Probably the scariest thing I've ever done, because oddly enough, I make my videos for me and I think my editing is okay nowadays, but they're just like, hey, can you just fully produce a video and just send it to our team? And I was like, yes, I can do that. Do you want me to do that? And they're like, yeah, we think it'd be great. I'm like, okay. Shoutouts to the Blizzard production team too. They were the nicest people. I sent it off to them. They're like, wow, this is actually really good. Like this is awesome. Thank you. We're just gonna clean up a little bit. We're gonna put in some effects. And my first thought was just like, yeah, you like the video I made. Okay, yeah, cool. Yeah. I expected that and definitely thought that would be the outcome. But recipes to the Gauntlet, because now nobody will ever see it. It doesn't really sound like it's coming back, or maybe, we're going to see what the other trials are, because they were referred to as the trials. But recipes to the Gauntlet, it was my little moment to really put my stamp on the game with that video. At least they liked it, and it was really cool to work with them.
Yeah, we've got a game that allows people to really play the way they want to play. And so you've got all the progression of your character and building up your power over time, but we know that the leaderboard needs to have a certain level of control, right? So no one likes a cheater. We need to be in a position where we can like avoid people cheating and creating distrust for the system. And we also know that there's a certain element of skill that needs to be present. And so when we go to inject something like this, if we have not taken steps forward to addressing both of those things, then we're starting in a bad place. And so that's the heat of the discussion right now is how do we what activity suits this best and how do we address those two things as we continue developing it?
Alrighty. Well, the last thing that I can see here on this roadmap, and I did a forensic investigation in Photoshop, and this clearly says new something something SS. So that says new class. All right, not fooling me. So on a scale of 1 to Paladin, exactly how much Paladin will the Paladin?
I knew it. It's just on a scale of 1 to Paladin. Holy, that was good, Rhykker. So as people know, I'm a huge Paladin hater. Rest in peace, people who wanted the Paladin. I don't know what he says past this point, so I could be eating my words very soon. But I would enjoy seeing the game continue to iterate on and offer new opportunities and new fantasies in Diablo. I want a Haradrim Artificer. I want a Trap Maker. Well, we kind of get that with the Rogue. But I would love to see more new things. What does a Bard look like in Diablo 4? What does anything? But I know people want the Paladin. That kind of looks like the Crusader banner to me. I wouldn't be surprised if we got a new version of Paladin. Let's see what we hear from here.
Wow, like the Woodchuck Wood. I don't think it would be a Diablo interview without asking more questions about the Paladin. We've heard it 1,000 times. I think I'm on record going, heard you loud and clear. So we have not revealed anything. But I am really excited about the class offering coming up for the expansion. I think we're going to surprise people with what we have in store. So sit tight, keep on talking about the Paladin every single day, and hopefully we get to that day when we release, everybody is pretty happy.
People are going to be very surprised. Do I think that means an entirely new class? Do I think it means a bastardization of the Paladin? Because when we look at the lore, do you know why there aren't Paladins in Diablo 4? It's because they really don't exist. There really isn't an order. The Zakarim are long destroyed. The Crusaders were mostly wiped out. Diablo 3, right? You have like Templars. You have the Church of Light, where the original ones, like the Knights Penitent, like Vigo, the character, if you remember from the base campaign, Vigo, I was like, this is the Paladin class. Why? Because he literally uses charge and shield slam, the actual like one-to-one recreation of the animations from Diablo 2 for smite, sorry, not shield slam, smite and charge. He does a charge, he does the smite animation. It's one-to-one. He had different abilities where he put up like a protective bubble. He ends up getting into the Knights Penitent armor. That could have been like an ultimate or something. And it was like very clear that this was going to be the holy class, the holy character in the game. But the Church of Inarius, this cult, this Church of Light, is mostly demolished. Then you have in Vessel of Hatred, the remaining people who could be paladins end up being these burnt crusaders under Urivar, and they all get wiped out too. So who are the paladins? You can have warriors of light. Absolutely. You know, we have a little bit of crossover there where Akarat's teachings goes on and informs the people in Nahantu. But what you end up getting out of there is the Spiritborn, which is really not the following of the light. It's not the following of the words of the angels taught to Akarat. So the question becomes, who are the warriors of light? We obviously have monks, right? We have monks in Diablo 3. I think you need to go off continent to get a faction of light-based warriors for the lore to make sense. Somebody in chat reminded me of this. This was something that we were talking about, which is that the story of the Vessel of Hatred leads to Mephisto having Akarat's body. And the idea here is that he would be able to go out and, one, a primeval needs a host to be able to manifest on the world, or needs to be brought into the world. But that's how you get all of the primevals back on this world, right? Like, they got through the soul stone through their host to be able to rematerialize in Sanctuary. So the question becomes, Akarat comes down. It's Mephisto wearing Akarat's body. You get the Heir of Perdition talking about the wolf in sheep's clothing. But if Akarat were to go anywhere throughout this prime continent, people would know that it's Mephisto. We would have the Wanderer, who is renowned across the world, or across this continent at the very least, as known as the person who has killed Lilith, who has faced Mephisto and would be able to spread that word. Nobody would follow Akarat. Nobody would follow these false teachings. They wouldn't be able to succumb to Mephisto's twisted version of the light, which would get them ultimately to empower him. So he would have to go off continent as well. This is why we think that we're going to Shanxi. But that's not really a large enough landmass. So I think that Akarat will have to go off continent, which would get us to go off continent. There, he would develop a cult. In that cult, you would have people who believe that they are worshiping the light, but will find out that they are not, and that we will redeem them after we defeat Mephisto. So you can have this redeemed, bastardized followers of the light, so that this Paladin class isn't just Holy Smite and auras, but instead has like a whole dark side to it, like a whole shadow side to it, where they're not quite like Blood Knights, because I think that would be kind of lame. But this idea where you typically have, like, in general, 3 to 4 options throughout your skill tree. Necromancer has darkness, bone, blood, and corpses and minions, technically. This Paladin, whatever this Paladin class looks like, can have the light, can have, like, the utility aura healing, and then could have a darkness or a blood thing tied to it where you do, dark magics or whatever. And I think that would make sense. That's where I think we get a Paladin. So is that what Brent is hinting at here? Where it's like, people will be surprised. Yes, it's the Paladin, but with a twist? Maybe. If we're going to get the Paladin, that's the kind of Paladin I think we're going to get in the game. And as long as it has a sword and board, I think people will be happy. And also, it has to have Blessed Hammer, obviously, or shield. It has to be able to throw the shield or spin hammers. It's got to be able to do one of the two. I'm guessing it's going to be Blessed Hammer.
So that was my interview with Brent Gibson. If there's one thing that I probably should have asked, would have been about endgame meta progression systems. It's something that's been on the minds of a lot of us. Myself particularly, I've been beating a dead horse about this for over a year now. It's not something that I saw tackled on the roadmap itself, so I figured it's kind of outside of the scope of what they have planned, but that's why I wanted to ask, okay, is this everything we're getting, or are you affording room for potentially pivoting or changing things as needs may arise within the community? So, question for you folks, if you feel as strongly as me that adding some kind of endgame meta progression system, we're talking about something like Path of Exile's Atlas of Worlds, or the Monolith of Fates from last Epoch, if something like that is important to you, make your voices heard. The devs have always shown that they are very, very receptive and open to steer things in the direction that the community wants. Otherwise, folks, I invite you to leave a comment below with your thoughts on the roadmap, on the interview, and we'll thank you for watching. Special thanks to my supporters for making these videos possible. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe.
Love you, bud. Great interview from Rhykker. I mean, Rhykker always does a really good job. He's good at what he does, oddly enough. And I think this was a very good interview. Gave the dev a lot of good time to talk about this stuff. You know, Brent had to give some of the answers that he had to give. There's just no way around it. He cannot reveal things that we're not even close to revealing. That's just not going to happen. I do think that we got some good insight. I think a little bit of the stuff that we were able to tease out of him also helps to just grant us just a little bit more information about not necessarily what's happening, but why it's happening. When I first looked at the roadmap, I was a little bit put off just because kind of half of it is stuff we literally already know about. And I don't think a lot of people are going to get too excited about IP Collabs. I might be wrong there. But this interview, along with the roadmap, is the quintessential experience of it. Hopefully by watching this video, you also go check out Rhykker's video. I'll put a link in the description if you just want to hear just him chit-chatting. I did play all of it because I figured that would be important. Make sure to leave a like on Rhykker's video, subscribe to his channel if you haven't already. Go give him a comment down there as well. It helps out. If you appreciated my insights here and you're new here, consider subscribing, leave a like. Let me know what you think about not only what Rhykker discussed with Brent Gibson, but also kind of the additional insight that I was able to share. Let me know what you think. If you made it all the way to this point, wow, it was over an hour. You're an absolute G-Unit gangster. I appreciate you. Much love to everybody. Thank you very, very, very much for watching this video. I truly, truly hope that helps, and I hope that you're excited for the future of Diablo 4. And as always, I look forward to seeing you in the next video.